Starting the year 2022. Starting the year 2024 with the support for one of my favorite decks out of 2023, as well as a generic support card for each and every deck under the sun, which also kind of includes the new quick start decks. And we actually get a first look at how the new generic cards will function, and it might be a game changer in terms of how the game move forward. This video is sponsored by Phoenix Pharos Cards. If you need supplies of singles or splits for Cardfight Vanguard, especially the ones in the video, do check out Phoenix Pharos Cards today, and as a bonus, use the promo code MetaNerd to get an amazing 5% discount. And with that being said, let's get on with the video. Greetings YouTube, welcome back to the MetaNerd channel. I am Marcus, bringing you another video for Cardfight Vanguard DivineZ. In this video, we'll be going through the generic card that was revealed, as well as 2 support cards for Greedon that was revealed in the past Thursday stream. Only 3 cards are being revealed, and it actually make a significant impact in terms of the current deck building that we are doing for the existing decks. And since we are actually moving forward to 50 card main deck, this generic card might be the most overused one as of yet. But of course, it still depends on how your deck is building, as well as how much value the second skill is bringing to your deck. Without further ado, let's take a look at 3 of these cards, and of course I'm gonna do a little bit of showcase of Greedon. First and foremost is of course going to be the generic card Steam Gunner Tizqar. Although when this unit is put on Guardian Circle from hand or discarded from hand while riding from the right deck, cast Counter Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3 and draw a card. Second skill, although when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, if you personal ride this turn, cast Counter Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3, and you may soul charge 1 until the end of turn. This unit gets boost and power +5. So this is the first look at how the Energy Blast skill will be designed as a cause moving forward into DivineZ. Of course, this is only the generic cards. We haven't actually see like a specific support for a certain ride line on how the energy cost will be. Is it going to be a alternative cost as this card, or is just going to be strictly either Counter Blast or Energy Blast? With the flexibility of using either a Counter Blast or Energy is super nice for any deck that we have currently in Cardfight Vanguard, because for sure you will have 1 out of the 3 resources that you are not actually using as much. For example, the newer deck, the quick start decks, doesn't really use Counter Blast as much. You could technically use the Counter Blast that you did not use on this card to gain a little bit of value when you guard or discard from the right deck to ride. It only costs 1 Counter Blast or 3 energy. Of course, you don't really want to spend the energy because the new quick start deck for DivineZ actually uses 4 energy. So if you use this 3 energy, you might not have enough to sustain yourself if you use recklessly in terms of your energy. I think the Counter Blast is a great alternative cost for the quick start decks. For the older decks, those decks are going to be using the energy because they technically do not really use a lot of energy other than Energy Blast 7 to draw 1. So they will definitely have spare 3 energy to use for this card here. They don't really want to use the Counter Blast because most of the older stuff are using Counter Blast like crazy. So energy is the best way to go for the older decks. Drawing 1 from guarding is super nice. It will definitely increase the survivability depending on what you draw. If you manage to draw another card or another PG for that one draw, it's gonna change the tide of the battle. Not only that, if you discard this card to ride from the right deck, you are able to draw a card. It basically functions the same as the Psycho card that we have currently, the one that Soul Blast 1, return her and draw 1. Those 2 are almost the same thing, but with different costs. So it basically depends on how much stuff your deck is using, and you can just plan out from there. More options that actually let you draw stuff is just really good. However, the sad thing about this card is that the second skill is a little bit lackluster because not a lot of Dark States card want to use this for the second skill. The second skill is a little bit too expensive, be it Counter Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3 to get a grade 2 booster that is a 15k booster, and you get a soul charge 1. I mean, you don't really want to soul charge as much nowadays for Dark States except maybe Barrow Magnus as well as the Jewel, but then again, it's generally not a good idea to randomly soul charge from the top of the deck. So the second part of this skill isn't really that good, at least for now, for the decks that we see so far. This cycle card will be insane once we get more stuff going into DivineZ. DivineZ. Next, of course, is the Greedon support. We have Desire Devil Gorjoe. Although when this unit is put from Rhaegar Circle into Soul, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Greedon in its card name, cast Energy Blast Tree and put this card into hand. Second skill, Continuous Guardian Circle. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Greedon in its card name and your damage zone has 4 or more cards, this unit gets 5k shield. This card, to be honest, is not really a great card, at least in my opinion, coming from a Greedon mass perspective. Let's talk a little bit on the positive side of this card here. This card, not using any Counter Blast or Soul Blast, is very, very nice for Greedon, but technically Greedon doesn't really use a lot of Counter Blast unless you are playing Incan, the one that gives you triple drive. Then maybe you might hurt for Counter Blast just a little bit. Greedon at the moment for sure doesn't use any energy, so having this as an energy cost is just bonus for Greedon. This card basically recycles itself when he is being put from Rhaegar Circle into the Soul, which both versions of Greedon will be doing, and this card will just refund itself back to the hand, which means that it basically lowers down the number of standing Rhaegar required to be put into the Soul from Greedon's cost. It's super nice, and it's just gonna maintain the hand size of Greedon just a little bit. And with this card being a 10k shield is okay, but of course you will need to be at 4 damage and above to even get the 10k shield. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the bad side of this. One, it's not really doing anything in terms of your offense as well as utility. It doesn't really provide much value other than being a defensive 10k shield in the hand, but we do actually have 10k shield already, which has a much easier time to get the 5k shield. Of course, that card doesn't really go back to hand when he's being eaten by Greedon. That card could act as an attacker, which I think Greedon might want. It does have some synergy in terms of the current Greedon deck, so I don't think this card has a better value or equal value than Sashio. This card might be really good in the OG Greedon deck, but I don't think the Mass deck will want this card. It's really not providing much for the Mass deck, and due to how limited the Mass deck space is because of the Dragon Tree stuff, I don't think you'll want to put this inside the Mass deck. That's my opinion. It's not really that great of a card, but I would consider pick this up just in case that some other cards future down the line actually supports the OG Greedon. But still, why would you want to run the OG Greedon? It's still a big question to me, at least in my opinion. Next, we have the triple R for Greedon. Desire Devil Alarcray, a Charizard looking thing. Although when this unit is placed on Rhaegar Circle during your main phase, cast Energy Blast Tree, choose a unit card with Desire Devil in its card name and different from this unit from your Soul and call it to Rhaegar Circle. Second skill, auto friend with Rhaegar Circle. Once per turn, when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Greedon in its card name attack, until the end of turn, that unit gets 5k power, and if your damage has 4 or more cards, this unit gets 5k power. Finally, Greedon actually gets something that Suppoer calls any Desire Devil from the Soul. I mean, we kinda do have a card that Suppoer calls anything from the Soul, but that card actually costs 1 Counter Blast as well as 2 Soul Blast, which is super not cost efficient. This card basically uses Energy Blast, which is a much more efficient resources to use, and you get to choose any Desire Devil without actually Soul Blast anything. Because at the moment, Greedon Mass deck doesn't really appreciate use Soul Blast as much, especially when you only have like 3 Desire Devil in the Soul, then that's going to be a problem. This card doesn't Soul Blast, you just straight away call out a Desire Devil, while in some cases is still crippling because of Greedon Mass needing 3 Desire Devil in the Soul. At the most part, if you are running cards that basically puts the Desire Devil cards from the drop into the Soul, I think it's okay. One good thing about this card is technically this card is a generic support for all Dark States card, because the only thing that is name locking for this card is Desire Devil. It doesn't actually restrict you to see if your Vanguard is Greedon. So you have a few cards that is quite generic, which you can be played in other decks. For example, Fujo as well as Goman, the Great One right line. Of course, Fujo is restricted to Greedon, that's that, but Goman is not actually restricted to anything. So this card could technically Suppoer call Goman from the Soul regardless of what deck you're playing. And of course, if you're playing Charizard here as well as Goman in the deck, then this card could technically support deck. But of course, you can't really get the full value out of this card if you want to run this engine inside other decks other than Greedon. This basically opens up some shenanigans on turn 3 for Greedon, because one, this card is searchable by Greedon's skill, because this card is a Desire Devil. And 2, because your grade 2 right line has a skill that when you ride Greedon on top of the grade 2 right line, you are required to put a card from your hand into the soul to search out Sashio. That card that you put into the soul can be called out by Charizard here if, of course, that card is a Desire Devil, which is super good. We can talk more about that once we go into the showcase. The second skill is something that I've been wanting as soon as we see Greedon Mass, is that this card does provide a small power boost whenever Greedon Mass attack the first time. By giving a 5k and is stackable up to 2 times, because you can just call both Charizard out in the front row and your Vanguard will get a 10k power, which means that Greedon Mass is going to be attacking at 33k, which is very nice number. So it basically forces the opponent to either just throw cards or no guard. Most of the time I see people no guard unless they are really high in damage, then maybe they will guard. However, the thing that caught me off guard is that this card is able to gain a 5k by itself, which makes this a 15k attacker for Greedon. This being a 25k is very nice. When the opponent is getting at most 1 damage trigger check, then yeah, this card is really good. But at the same time, it's not really that impactful for now because Dragon Tree marker is still a thing inside this deck, so the 5k doesn't really matter as much. But more so than not, it's still a very good card. So here's a little bit of a showcase that with the addition of the Charizard will look like for the deck. If of course you do play Greedon, you should know by now that this grade 2 right line do have a skill that requires you to put 1 card into the soul and then get the grade 2 Sashio out. Of course, this is assuming that you are playing a Greedon Mass deck. So here's one of the neat trick that I think will make a big difference with the addition of Charizard. So let's say at the start of your turn, you will definitely have 6 energy. So at the start of your turn 3, you draw. Let's just assume that this is our hand and we do draw already. You will discard 1 card to ride the Greedon and therefore activate the grade 2 skill. So for the grade 2 skill right now, you are required to put 1 card from your hand into your soul in order to get the grade 2 Sashio out, this card right here. So what you want to do here is basically you just put Fujo into the soul and you search the deck for Sashio into hand, and then of course you shuffle. Right now we have 4 soul, and of course if you do have the Alarcray, you can either choose to go into Greedon Mass first before you call this, but it's basically up to you. But for now we can just go straight into Greedon Mass, and right now is where you want to set up your board. So what you can do right here is you can call out the Charizard here, and of course this unit is on place during your main phase, which you currently are. You can just Energy Blast tree and you choose the same card that was being put into the soul by the grade 2 cost to Superior Call it out from the soul. With this interaction, you basically gain 1 hand while building the board with this 1 card, which is super nice, and you get the retire from Fujo's skill. Very nice. The only problem for this interaction is that you will only be left with 3 Desire Devil in the soul. Because Charizard here doesn't really help you gain any soul, and it basically takes away 1 Desire Devil out from the soul, which is quite crucial for Greedon Mass skill. It's a very small detail that might hinder your decision making in terms of what card to call from the soul. So things like Scoutcamdar will probably be unable to Soul Blast if of course you don't have this mass order yet, because if you don't have the mass order yet, you will left with these 3 soul. If you call Scoutcamdar and you Soul Blast this out, it means that you have only 2 soul, which you might not be able to activate Greedon Mass skill. So assuming that we don't have the mass order at this time, we can just call this out to Counter Blast 1 to Soul Blast 1. Let's assume that we are not in Greedon Mass yet. You could search out the deck for the mass, and of course you just activate the mass skill to search out either Dragon Tree or anything. You are left with 2 soul, and then once you go into Greedon Mass, you will have 4 soul, but of course you only have 2 Desire Devils. This is where this card actually comes in handy. So Clunkly Stroller here is basically there to help you out of this kind of situation. So for example, if you have like this kind of setup right here, you could call Clunkly Stroller out to Soul Blast this Greedon here to put either a Fujo or a Mozine into the soul. Depends on how your setup is. But in this scenario, I think I will be putting the Fujo into the soul because you don't really need the Mozine as of yet. You could always come back and put him to the soul. What this basically does is not only are you repairing your soul by having 3 Desire Devils in the soul, you are also soul blasting out the Greedon here. This OG Greedon here can be paid by Greedon Mass skill to banish it to check the top 7 for a Desire Devil. There's quite a few Desire Devils that you could call, but I did whiff here. So that's not good. There's quite a bit of Desire Devils that you might want. For example, either Mozine from the deck or a Fujo from the deck. that you can just call out to retire something else, which is super nice. That's the very small detail that I find is really good for this deck, and it synergizes really well. The only downside with the addition of Charizard here is that you are no longer running the Grade 1 Dragon Tree. It's not the end of the world because you just need to draw another Alarcray to keep on Superior Call, let's say Goman here. Goman is going to be the next target you will want to call after your turn 3, depends on if the opponent is at grade 3 or not. So you will need to draw into Alarcray to Superior Call out the Goman to get the Batador, because it is only on place. So it's not really reusable the turn after next turn. The grade 1 Dragon Tree actually is usable because the skill is active, which means that you can keep on using the skill turn after turn as long as you have the soul. But the biggest difference between these two cards is because this card is actually a Desire Devil. It basically contributes to the soul requirement. I mean, you do take out 1, but it's better than you take out 3 cards in total for the Grade 1 Dragon Tree. Charizard here is going to be the next best thing in replacement of the Grade 1 Dragon Tree. The Grade 1 Dragon Tree, while good, but in some cases you don't really want to Soul Blast to Superior Call the Goman out, so it feels bad at some point. And that is all for this video. Do let me know down in the comment section of what you think of the generic support card for each and every nation for Dark States, as well as the 2 support card for Greedon. Do like and subscribe if you like this video, and of course during the bell notification icon so that you don't miss a video I upload. With that being said, I'll see you all on the field.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go.